Good afternoon or good morning, depending on where you're joining us from today. I wanted to welcome each of you to today's webinar on the FY22 Notice of Funding Opportunity for the Pilot Program for Transit-Oriented Development Planning. My name is Fleming Elamine, Director of the Office of Planning within FTA's Office of Planning and Environment, located at DOT headquarters in Washington, D.C. Since fiscal year 2015, FTA has provided nearly $90 million to help communities throughout the country advance TOD planning around fixed guideway transit projects that are in planning, design, or the newly implemented stage. This year, we look forward to working with each of you to help continue this work. At this time, I will now hand the presentation over to April McLean-McCoy, who is FTA's Program Manager for the Pilot Program for TOD Planning. April?
Thank you, Fleming. Good afternoon and good morning, everyone. I will start with this disclaimer, which notes the content of this webinar do not have the force and effect of law and are not meant to bind the public in any way. This webinar is intended only to provide clarity to the public regarding existing requirements under the law or agency policies. Grantees and subgrantees should refer to FTA statutes and regulations for applicable requirements of the TOD pilot program. Next slide. Thank you for joining us today for the fiscal year 22 TOD NOFO webinar. Before we get into the rest of the presentation, I'll go over a few logistics. This webinar is being captioned and recorded, and we expect to have it posted on FTA's TOD pilot program website in the next few business days. Today's presentation will start off with a review of the program for the first few slides, and then I will hand it over to Wat Moki from FTA's Office of Program Management to present information that is specific to applying on grants.gov. At the end of the presentation, I will complete a Q&A session, which provides you, the audience, the opportunity to ask questions about the program. Until then, please feel free to type your questions into the chat pod at any time. However, I do encourage you to wait until we finish with the formal part of the presentation, for some questions may get answered in the next 30 minutes. So now at this time, I'll provide an overview of the program. The pilot program for transit-oriented development planning was created under MAP 21 and continued into the FAST Act and bipartisan infrastructure law, and provides grants for conducting comprehensive or site-specific TOD planning at stations along new fixed guideways and core capacity improvement corridors. On May 26th, we released our 7th NOFO, with applications due on July 25th. NOFO stands for Notice of Funding Opportunity. So to save time in this presentation, I will shorten this to NOFO. One notable change to this year's NOFO is the language on site-specific planning, which states that applicants can submit proposals for one individual station. For this allows applicants to submit proposals for smaller scale projects. Next slide. This map shows the location of the 110 awards that were made in response to the first 6 NOFOs, which totals $90 million. As you can see, we have good coverage across the country, with the 3 states, California, Florida, and Texas, receiving the most awards. Next slide. On January 20th, FTA launched a TOD planning program GIS dashboard to showcase information on awarded proposals in the respective planning studies. To learn about this user-friendly tool and the projects, feel free to visit FTA TOD webpage. Next slide. The major objective of the TOD pilot program are to encourage comprehensive or site-specific TOD planning at transit station areas and corridors containing eligible projects, support TOD planning work that goes beyond what local agencies would usually fund themselves, and to encourage partnerships to maximize chances for successful TOD implementation. Next slide. In previous years, While reviewing applications, we ran into a situation where the proposed comprehensive TOD planning studies in the transit corridors were well thought out, but the transit projects in those corridors were not technically eligible. So I encourage you to please pay attention to exactly what is stated in the NOFO, as well as what is discussed during this webinar. But in total, the comprehensive or site-specific TOD planning work must be associated with a new fixed guideway or a core capacity improvement project as defined in the NOFO. The transit project does not need to be in an FTA's capital investment grants program. Also, as was done for the previous NOFOs, the word new for a fixed guideway project includes projects that are still in the planning stage, already under construction, or recently open to revenue services. Core capacity improvement projects are also new, regardless of when the fixed guideway service was first implemented. And we refer you to the NOFO for the definition of a capital investment project that increases the capacity of the corridor by not less than 10%. Next slide. As outlined in the NOFO, a good path to successful TOD implementation includes both the transit project sponsor and the land use authority or authorities for the corridor contained in the transit project to work together on a TOD planning study. The first three bullets on this slide are showing three situations that will occur for the actual applicant who is an FTA grantee, including the applicant is a transit project sponsor, the land use authority, or in some cases, the sponsor is also the land use authority. For corridors in your area, we are looking for only one application per transit project. Separate application for the same corridor is a strong sign that appropriate coordination has not taken place locally. And lastly, multiple corridors in a region are allowed, but each corridor needs a separate application. Next slide. The work plan is a required part of each application. While there is a lot of flexibility about the type of work that is eligible and can be performed, you should make sure that the proposed work plan addresses the 6 aspects shown on this slide, which are identified in the NOFO and come from the MAP 21 statute that was carried over to the FAST Act and into the bipartisan infrastructure law. Examples of final deliverables are identified in the NOFO and include, but are not restricted to, comprehensive planning documents, corridor development policies, station development plans, zoning codes or resolutions, studies of financial strategies for TOD, including value capture, and resolutions to implement plans, policies, or financing strategies. Next slide. The grant conditions for this program include: proposals have a maximum 80% federal funding share. For information about eligible sources for the non-federal share, please reference the NOFO. Though, to review an example, in-kind contributions are permitted, but transportation development credits, which was previously referred to as toll revenue credits, do not. For the pre-award authority, details regarding actions are provided when FTA announces the funding selections. And lastly, metropolitan transportation planning requirements also apply for this program, where one example is that the awarded grants will need to be included in the Mpos Unified Planning Work Program, or UPWP, before they receive FTA funding. This does not mean you must amend a UPWP right now before an application is submitted. Instead, this can be done after the awards are announced, but before FTA's funding for the award can be used. Next slide. The statute for this program states that these funds are only for TOD-focused planning. So it is important for you to avoid ineligible activities in your work plan. Given how important this is to your application, I'll briefly go over the limits outlined in the NOFO. The ineligible activities include transit project development activities that would be reimbursable under an FTA capital grant, such as project planning, the design, engineering of stations and other facilities, environmental analysis needed for the transit capital project, or costs associated with Pacific joint development activities, and capital projects such as land acquisition, construction, and utility relocation. Next slide. For your formal submission, you will want to apply through the grants.gov process. We will not accept applications by email. In just a few minutes, I will hand this over to Walt Moki of FTA's Office of Program Management to provide some additional information about applying for FTA grant opportunities in grants.gov. Although the application deadline is more than a month away, I do encourage you not to wait until July 25th. Our TOD pilot program NOFO webpage, or on our TOD pilot program webpage, there is a link that will take you straight to grants.gov for the grant opportunity with the ID number shown on this slide. For the applicant and proposal profile supplemental form, please make sure to use the current 2022 form and not what was available from previous NOFOs. The other attachments include a map of the proposed study area, evidence of partnerships between the transit project sponsor and land use planning authority, and documentation of local, meaning non-federal funding commitments. Next slide. For the initial screening of all submissions, we are checking for eligibility of the applicant and the transit project, including evidence of a partnership plus completeness of the overall application on the applicant proposal profile supplemental form, as well as other items that will be helpful to the review process. Next slide. For those applications that pass the initial screening, we will have a team of reviewers who will evaluate each application according to these 3 criteria that are identified in greater detail in the NOFO. They include demonstrated need for TOD planning funds, strength of the work plan, schedule, and process, and funding commitments for the TOD planning work. Each technical review results in an overall score of highly recommended, recommended, not recommended, or ineligible, which is then passed along to FTA leadership. Next slide. Once the technical reviews are completed, FTA will be looking at consistency within the departmental objectives, support of executive orders, which I will show on the next 3 slides. This year, in this year's NOFO, there are 2 departmental objectives that are included that are new to the NOFO. I will go over those as well. Next slide. Similarly to last year, this year NOFO includes language on the President's Build Back Better initiative to mobilize American ingenuity to build a modern infrastructure and an equitable future. Therefore, including EJ populations within the framework of the TOD proposal is encouraged. However, a formal EJ analysis is not required or requested. For the proposals we're looking for information on environmental justice populations in your area as you define them and how the projects can benefit those populations. If you need additional information, you can refer to FTA's Environmental Justice Circular or the executive order listed on this slide. Next slide. In addition to EJ initiatives, the TOD program also supports the President's executive order on advancing racial equity and support for underserved communities throughout the federal government. In the NOFO, under the demonstrated needs section, it states that planning proposals should highlight the extent to which TOD planning will resolve environmental justice and climate change challenges facing the region. We would like you to take this section into consideration when drafting your planning proposals as well. Next slide. Furthermore, The NOFO also outlines steps to addressing the Biden's executive orders on protecting public health and the environment and restoring science to tackle climate crisis and tackling the climate crisis at home and abroad. For instance, under the scheduled work planning section, it highlights that proposed comprehensive or site-specific planning work should reduce greenhouse gas emissions and the effects on climate change. We would like you to take this item as well into consideration when drafting your planning proposals. Next slide. Lastly, to assist with identifying historically disadvantaged populations for which you can outline in your proposal is the historically disadvantaged mapping tool. This tool is helpful when identifying populations within your study area and outlining direct ways the project will mitigate or reduce climate change impact. We would like you to take this tool in consideration when drafting your proposals as well. Next slide. At this time, I will hand this presentation over to Walt Moke in FTA's Office of Program Management to provide more details about applying for FTA grant opportunities on the website grant.gov.
Great. Thank you, April. This portion of the webinar is basically to provide you an orientation on the resources available to applicants or applicant organizations that are available on the FTA website in grants.gov, and also to talk about the application process itself. Next slide, please. FTA notices of funding opportunity. FTA funding opportunities are published on the FTA website, in the Federal Register, and also in grants.gov website. We recommend that applicants start their search or an application process on the FTA funding opportunity, the NOFO page. Using the NOFO page as your start point will provide links to related information and websites and other resources to assist you with the application process. So I've depicted here the FTA website, excuse me, the notices of funding opportunity, as well as the notice, the details of the opportunity notice. To locate the NOFO page, you go to the FTA homepage. That's fta.dot.gov on the in your internet browser. At the top of the web page, click on Funding, and then select Applying, and then click on Notices of Funding on the left side of the page. The Notice of Funding provides links to the current or active FTA opportunities that are available. Additionally, there's another for expired notices if you wish to research. But you click on the opportunity ID, which is hyperlinked to the FTA website and the NOFO summary page. Additionally, we have a grant program link as well that links you to the information on the Office of Environmental Programs, as well as this program specifically. Next slide, please. The Notice of Funding Opportunity is stated, contains a summary of the opportunity announcement, the important dates, application deadlines, and a brief explanation of eligibility requirements and links to the grants.gov. It also has the supplemental form, the Federal Register notice, and other relevant information about the FTA program, which may assist applicants in developing and submitting a successful proposal or application. The supplemental form is a fillable PDF form, which is an FTA product that is used to capture the key elements of the applicant's proposal. This form contains fill-in blanks for information, which will be used by FTA to evaluate the projects and your funding requirements. This form must be attached to the application in grants.gov in order to receive consideration. Please do not use forms from prior years or attempt to create your own PDF form in lieu of the supplemental form provided. also use only the current form which we've provided on the FDA website as well as in grants.gov. And do not attempt to attach images or scanned copies of supplemental form or information in that PDF. Next slide, please. To download the application from the FDA website, once you click on the blue hyperlinked opportunity ID on the NOFO page, you'll be taken to grants.gov site. The grants.gov site, as depicted at this slide, shows the opportunity and also the synopsis, the version history, related documents, and also the package. The 4 tabs at the top, currently the synopsis is highlighted. This page is, when you begin to apply for this funding opportunity, is shown basically at the right side, right bottom side. The synopsis tab provides similar information, which we published on the FDA website, and shows if any changes have been posted. Additionally, it provides, again, the key dates and related regulatory references. The version history tab is just that, a history of the changes we have made on from the original announcement on the FDA website, on the grants.gov website. The related documents tab. This leads to a folder which contains documents related to this opportunity. It includes items such as the Federal Register notice, the supplemental form to be used in this application, and any other related documents that may be required for submitting a successful package. And if the package tab, this contains references to the links and to allow you to download the application itself. Note that anyone can download the application package from the grants.gov site or from the FDA website, but however, only individuals who have been designated in grants.gov as an authorized organizational representative can submit an application. A little more on that later. Next slide, please. So here's a better description of the application package. The slide show the content of the application package in grants.gov. As you will see it, it has the mandatory SF 424, which is the application, the anti-lobbying form, and the attachment form that's used to attach the supporting materials for the application. Note that the application package itself does not include the supplemental form. These forms are specifically grants.gov and OMB forms, and the supplemental form is an FDA form, which must be attached to your application in the application form, attachment form, I should say. Next slide, please. This is a depiction of the supplemental form. The must be downloaded separately, as I said, from the FDA website or from within the related documents tab in grants.gov. It's to be attached to the application or attachment form, and it's a way for applicants to include documents supporting your application. Again, the supplemental form is a PDF used to capture information that FDA needs to evaluate the proposed project. Next slide, please. In grants.gov, there's a grants.gov applicants tab. This is information that's very useful to applicants who have previously submitted applications to FDA, as well as brand new applicants who have not submitted for federal awards. The applicants tab I encourage you to review the tab in grants.gov to make sure you have the latest information about the application process, or grants.gov, how the workings and necessary training itself for using grants.gov. Next slide, please. The organization registration for new applicants in grants.gov for federal funds. This site assists organizations to register not only in grants.gov, but also in a system for award management to obtain a unique entity identifier, previously known as the DUNS number. So currently, all applicants must provide a unique entity identifier similar to an individual's social security number in order to apply for federal funds. This site will assist you in navigating to SAM and obtaining the required unique entity identifier for your application process. Unlike the DUNS number, this service in a SAM is provided for free, and it's by GSA. Next slide, please. The workspace is available in grants.gov. Registered organization will have an opportunity to create a workspace in which grant proposal teams can collaborate, preparing the application proposal and gathering associated documents. The workspace eliminates the need for emailing documents between members. Grants.gov also has enhanced the site to allow applicant organizations, the workspace for assigned individuals can collaborate, share, perform varied tasks to develop the application, and also to submit the application directly from that workspace. Please review your workspace requirements in grants.gov and identify the type of workspace and the team members that you will use to prepare your application. Please review the roles and the privileges, and remember that only the authorized organization representative can submit an application. FDA is accepting applications submitted via grants.gov from organizations and not individuals. Such organizations must be registered in grants.gov and will only accept applications transmitted from grants.gov. Next slide, please. And in summary, these are the key links and addresses to this and other funding opportunities. Basically, if you encounter any issues or technical issues about within grants.gov in the application process or submitting the process, please address such concerns directly to grants.gov and not to the FDA representatives. FDA or the program related questions, eligibility, other questions regarding the program, etc., should then be addressed to the FDA program manager and not to grants.gov. So this completes my portion of the presentation.
Thank you, Walt. Now we review a few common questions asked by past grantees or applicants pertaining to the TOD program. Next slide. First question, when are the responses to this NOFO of funding opportunity due? The current deadline for submitting applications is July 25th of this year. Next question. What is the maximum allowable period of performance if we get a TOD planning award? While the NOFO does not specifically identify a timeframe for completion of the proposed work, most competitive applications can complete their work in a 2 or 3 year time frame. So if the proposed comprehensive or site-specific planning work is expected to take longer than 3 years, applicants should make the reasons for this clear and as clear as possible in the application. Next question is, are MPOs and cities eligible for an award? This one is possibly. The answer for this one is possibly. Applicants must be either the sponsor of an eligible transit capital project or an entity with land use planning authority. Applicants who also must have been existing FTA grantee recipient, either direct or a designated recipient as of July 25th, 2000. I apologize, as of May 26, 2022, the NOFO publication date. Most of the previously selected applications have had a transit provider as the grantee, with clear information provided on partnerships with one or more land use planning entities in the corridor. Selected applications and applicants in response to the 5 or 6 previous TOD pilot program NOFOs can be found on our TOD webpage. Next slide. The next question we have is, if we get a TOD planning award, does this mean we must eventually pursue a capital investment grant CIG application? And the answer is no. There is no requirement that your project be currently in the CIG program. Additionally, being in the CIG program or applying for a CIG program grant in the future is not a condition for receiving a grant from the TOD pilot program. The next question we have is, we have a BRT service in operation that does not meet the fixed skyway BRT definition in the NOFO, but are considering a possible upgrade that will meet this definition. Would this project be eligible? And the response is yes. Applicants for the TOD pilot program grants who plan to convert shared right-of-way BRT to exclusive right-of-way BRTs are eligible. But this must be described clearly in the application and as clear as possible, I would emphasize. The applicant must document that the majority of the project will be operated in a separated right-of-way dedicated for public transportation use during peak periods. And next slide. And the last common question is, my agency received TOD pilot program funds under a previous funding opportunity. Are we eligible for consideration for another award? And I would have to say yes. A project may be eligible for consideration, but applicants must need to make it clear how the proposed work plan differs from the previous work plan or planning proposal that was submitted in previous years. So at this time, that concludes our common questions, and we are going to go into the open session for Q&A. If you have not already done so, please feel free to place your questions into the chat pod, and I will hand the presentation over to Tonya Holland in the Office of Planning and Environment to moderate the Q&A portion of this presentation.
Thanks, April. I'm going to start with your Q&A box. And the first question is, can an application be considered eligible if the applicant are looking to define a fixed skyway alignment that would then complete a corridor once it progresses into a future project development? Or must the LPA for such a corridor already be defined to be considered for possible applications? So that's the question, April. The context is, there is a potential corridor that we're looking at, considering that has a TOD potential, but planning for it would help inform the analysis of the corridor. I ask this because most awards I've seen are those in the CIG process.
Thank you, Tonya, for that question, and thank you, audience member, for posing that question. I would say it's a great question. my response is that when applying for the program, we encourage applicants to have identified their mode. So the mode must have been identified. So the LPA is highly encouraged, as well as the mode must have been a fixed guideway transit project or a core capacity project. If you have any further questions or need more clarification, I do encourage you to contact me at my email address, and we can schedule a one-on-one consultation where I can answer any other questions that you may have about your particular scope of work.
Okay, so your second question in the Q&A box is, are heavy-duty vehicles or bus retrofits for transportation emissions reductions an eligible project? Is infrastructure to support low carbon fuels an eligible project?
And so I do want to thank the person for putting the question in the chat box as well. I do want to emphasize this is a planning study program, and that we do encourage applicants who do have a identified mode that is along a fixed guideway transit corridor to apply. If your mode or your scope of work does not align with that particular definition, it would not qualify. And again, if you have further questions, you can definitely email me or schedule additional appointments.
Okay, so April, your next question is, when it comes to cost share, does a higher than 20% local share of the project cost impact the rating of the application?
It does not. If you have a higher than 20% contribution for the project, it does, or for the planning study, it does not impact the rating.
Your next question is, what is the definition of an FTA recipient? So for example, how recent does a previous award have to have been made?
I would say, Walt, did you want to take a stab at that question?
Yeah, basically, if an active recipient is in active status in trams, that has basically whether or not they have an existing active award, but most recent recipients would be active in trams, and also that they have an active SAM account, that is, they're registered in SAM and have a unique entity identifier and showing a status as active in the system for award management. That's SAM. And also you can contact FDA or whatever to specifically to identify whether or not you are a active recipient in trams. We can identify that information for you.
Okay, thank you, Walt, for that. The next question is, how recent must the project be to be considered new?
Thank you, Tony, for the question. The word new refers to fixed guideway transit projects that are in the planning stage, but with the mode and at least the preliminary station locations identified. Also, it can be under construction or have been open for revenue services for less than 5 years.
Okay, thank you for that. And your next question is, we are considering applying for support for corridor level TOD strategy that includes many, more than 15 local jurisdictions with separate land use authority. Would we need to provide evidence that we are partnering with all the jurisdictions to be competitive?
We do encourage partnerships amongst the areas with land use authority to show that you guys are cooperating with this plan and everyone's on board. So yes, I would encourage evidence of partnerships, as well as information that you can share to show that the collaboration is solidified on this TOD planning project.
Okay, thank you. The next question is, the NOFO defines a core capacity improvement project as substantial investment in an existing fixed guideway system that increases the capacity of the corridor, but not less than 10%. If it's not clear from this definition when or if corridor-based BRT projects satisfy this definition. Would a corridor-based BRT project qualify if it replaces an existing high-frequency local route and satisfies the 10% increase in capacity requirement? Can you provide examples of when corridor-based BRT projects do and do not qualify for the program? I see that some corridor-based BRT projects have qualified for funding in the past.
Thank you, Tonya, for the question. I do encourage this person to email me pertaining to, so that I can provide the most clearest response for that question. It seems very complex and I would not be able to provide a clear response right now. But again, scheduling a meeting would be helpful, as well as just emailing me the question so that I can provide more information and to know more about the context of the area and the mode.
Okay, thank you, April. I'm going to move over to your chat box. So the first question in the chat is an applicant eligibility question. And it says, NOFO states that applicants to the TOD pilot program must be a state or states, U.S. territory or local governmental authorities, and FTA grant recipients, i.e. existing direct or designated recipients, as of the publication date of this NOFO. So the question is, what is the definition of an FTA grant recipient? Does it mean a jurisdiction that has ever won an award or has been awarded within the past few years? And I feel like this might be a Walt question.
So I believe, so FTA grant recipient is basically anyone that has previously received an FTA or federal funding through FTA, and that would require all the banking information, all the other related information for transfer of funds and for payment of funds, for disbursement of funds, et cetera. So basically having an active status in the transit award management system and trams.
Okay, thank you, Walt. The next question in the chat is, we are having trouble finding the past recipient selection announcements that detail the pre-award authority. Is there a place that these are available?
Yes, there is. And thank you so much for the question. In the Q&A box, I did provide the FTA's TOD webpage. On that page, there are the selections for the previous awards from 2015 all the way up to 2021. So feel free to reference that website. If you have any further challenges with identifying the selections, feel free to contact me, as well as in the chat pod, I did provide a link to the GIS TOD Planning Program GIS dashboard, which has more information on the awarded proposals and the respective planning studies.
Okay, so April, this one's a little lengthy, so just bear with me. This person is quoting a bit from your NOFO, section D2, documentation of partnerships between a transit project and sponsor and entity in the project corridor with land use planning authority to conduct the comprehensive planning work if the applicant does not have both of these responsibilities. Documentation may consist of a memorandum of agreement or letters of intent signed by all parties that describe the parties' roles and responsibilities in the proposed comprehensive planning project. And if a letter of intent will be provided, is there any guidance as to who the specific signatories to the letter have to be? Do they both have to be the chief executive or either entity, or can they be the commissioner or the department, commissioner of the department tasked with pursuing the grant opportunities?
Thank you again for that question. My response would be, we do encourage partnerships. Documentation of the partnerships is highly encouraged. In regards to who should be writing the letter of intent, it would be the person with the highest level of authority, who is responsible for overseeing the authorization of these actions at your organization.
Okay. Your next question in your chat box is on January 20th, 2022. FTA launched a TOD planning program GIS dashboard that showcases information on awarded proposals and the respective planning studies. To navigate the user-friendly tool, maybe this is from you. You just simply click on this. So this must be from you, April, letting the audience know that they can navigate your GIS dashboard.
Yes, and thank you for the reminder, Tonya, for letting the audience know that we do have this TOD planning program GIS dashboard. Feel free to check it out to learn more about the planning studies and what's actually being done throughout the United States.
Okay, so okay, I've already covered this next question, Ezra, so I'm going to move past that. Here's another one for you. Can one entity submit two applications?
If it's for two different corridors, we do allow applications for two different corridors, but it would have to, both applications will have to identify that the corridors are separated and provide good detailed information about the distinctions between the two.
Okay, so the definition of what's considered a new project, I think you've already responded to that, April.
Correct. And I can reiterate it again. It's a fixed skyway transit project that is in the planning stage, but with the mode at least preliminary stations located and identified. It can also be under construction or have been open for revenue services for less than 5 years.
Okay, so your next question then is, how far along in planning does a transit project need to be in order to be considered a project in FTA's eyes? For example, we have two potential BRT corridors. In one corridor, we are doing a feasibility study of the BRT. In the other corridor, we're doing a PD&E study and have an LPA selected.
Thank you so much, Tonya, for the question. That is a great question. And I think to provide the clearest answer, because it's a lot of information that's being shared in that particular that statement, I would encourage the participant to email me and we can talk a little bit more about the project, because I'm not getting a full sense of all the components of the question with this general statement. So on the next slide is my contact information. At that time that you're able to schedule an appointment, I'll be happy to talk more with you about this particular question.
So your next question is a duplicate from your chat box about the 20% local share match. So let me just move on to the next one from Patrick. Are county-wide TOD planning projects eligible? Is in-kind match allowable?
Yes to both. We have had approved, or we have approved several projects that were county-wide. I do encourage applicants that are interested in partnering with individuals of different land use authority to show partnership of that collaboration, so that we have a clear understanding when we're reviewing the applications of who is a part of the planning of that TOD planning project.
Okay, so the next one is, how long before verifications come out from grants.gov and FTA that the application is received? How do we verify the application has been received and in the review process? I asked because we did submit through this process before, and even though we received an email grant, that the grant was received by both grants.gov and FTA, it was not received by the people that did the reviews. So this actually is a Walt question.
So the system, the grants.gov is designed to respond and to indicate that they've received an application. Then the FTA system, discretionary grants management system, which is also the evaluation used as an evaluation tool by the office that's sponsoring the opportunity. Itself, it looks at the supplemental form and notifies the applicant if there are any issues or if it's rejected for some reason within the system by the FTA systems. So you should get a notification if there's any problems. You should also get a notification if FDA has received the application. I believe those are the only automated responses that FTA currently and grants.gov currently provide.
Okay, thank you, Walt. Next question is for you, April. Just want to confirm again, project development is not an eligible activity. Is that correct? For example, capital costs associated with making the area around a BRT station more TOD friendly. April, are you there? Okay, so just for the audience, we may have lost April for a moment. We'll give her a few minutes. Walt, I'm just going to scroll down and see if there's any more
Sure.
process questions for like grants.gov.
Okay.
Okay, just give me a moment. Okay. So, Walt, there's nothing in the chat for you. And then the other two questions are really probably for April. So they are
Sure.
definitely. So
Well, at the beginning of your presentation, you mentioned the closing date. The applications will be accepted in grants.gov on the day of closing until midnight East Coast time. So
okay.
just as a reminder.
April, are you back?
I am.
Okay. So I have a few more questions for you in the chat. So let's see. All right, I think you answered this one, but this is the one about the project development not an eligible activity. Did we cover that before I lost you?
We did not. If you can review it, that'd be great.
Okay, so this one from Brian is, I just want to confirm again, project development is not an eligible activity. Is that correct? For example, capital costs associated with making the area around a BRT station more TOD friendly.
Yes, I do want to thank the person for the question that we received. Capital costs are not reimbursable expenses. For the TOD program, we're focused on planning studies. Examples of planning documents that previous applicants have submitted would focus on corridor development policies, station development plans, zoning code resolutions, and studies of financial strategies for TOD, including value capture, and then resolutions to implement plan policies or financial strategies. If you have further questions about my explanation, feel free to contact me and I can schedule a meeting with you or communicate with you via email.
Okay, thank you, April. The next one is a comment and question. Using the provided link, the GIS dashboard has a data source error on the list of projects. Is it my system or yours?
It may be both of ours. I didn't experience any challenges with the system when I reviewed it earlier, but I will have someone look into that. Thank you so much for providing the comment.
Okay, so Kenya is giving you a compliment. Good morning and thank you for the very informative webinar. The question is, are parking studies in transit-oriented developments eligible planning studies under this program?
That is a very good question. I would like to schedule time to meet with that particular person to know more about the scope of work. So if you could schedule a time to meet with me, that'd be great.
Okay, so April, your next question is, could a fixed guideway system with multiple branches that converge into one common central trunk be construed as a corridor for the program, and planning related to multiple end-of-line extensions to the branches for that system thus be an eligible project?
I would say yes, as long as the BRT is operated on a fixed guideway system and during peak time periods. But again, to understand the project better, I would definitely encourage you to contact me directly so I can know more about the system that you're planning for.
So the next one is, would we be eligible if we are along an existing fixed skyway corridor that is undergoing a significant extension, in quotes, downstream from us, but technically outside of our authority area? All transit increases due to this extension will use an existing corridor within our area.
In that question, the response is possibly. It would depend on if you have the partnership with the land use authority that you're planning to plan that station area around, or your BRT system around or in, and ensuring that the partnership is documented in the proposal. But if you have further questions about the explanation, please feel free to contact me and we can schedule a one-on-one to talk about the plans that you do have.
Okay, April, the next one is a partnership question. Regarding partnerships, would it be valid for a tribal government council and a planning and public department of the tribal administration meet this definition?
I would say possibly, again, ensuring that these two entities have land use authority and are governing the planning actions within the area, it would be a valid partnership. But again, I would need to know more about your area as well as your governmental authorities in order to provide a valid answer. So again, I would encourage you to contact me if you have any further questions or need a better explanation.
Okay, the next one is in the NOFO, what is the difference between eligible projects and project activities?
So an eligible project is a fixed skyway transit project and a core capacity improvement project. The activities associated with those projects are anything that's in line with what's outlined in the NOFO. If you have further questions about the eligible activities, I would encourage you to contact me and we can schedule a one-on-one consultation.
Okay, so the next one is, can you reiterate if an MPO is an eligible applicant or if an MPO can be listed in the application as a project partner?
So applicants must be either the sponsor of an eligible transit capital project or an entity with land use planning authority. Applicants must also have been existing FTA grant recipient, as Walt explained earlier, as of the date that the NOFO was announced, which is May 26, 2022. And most of the previous selected applicants have had a transit provider as the grantee with partnership with the MPO or other land use planning entities in the corridor.
Okay, the next one is there a maximum award?
There is not, no.
Okay. Um, This person is asking Walt, can I get Walt's information to email him about my questions on verifications?
Certainly, I believe, well, certainly that's walt.moke@dot.gov. But I think that question should be, in the response, should be available to all the applicants as well.
Okay. Next question is, how far along does my project need to be? My jurisdiction is thinking about partnering to realign an intersection directly near a rail station. Redesign that rail station and realign the tracks. This could eventually allow us to create TOD around the new station. Does this sound like an eligible project since it's just an idea for now?
We would like the projects to have identified a mode, a locally preferred alternative, and the project would have to be either a fixed skyway transit project or core capacity improvement project in the planning stage, but also they can be under construction or have been in revenue or open for revenue services for less than 5 years. So based upon what you provided, yes, as long as the mode has been identified.
So the next question is associated with the tribal transit system, April. Would we have to expand our system to develop a corridor?
I would like to know more about your project in order to provide the most healthy response. So I think that's from Cheryl Johnson. If you can email me and schedule an appointment, that'd be great, because I would like to provide you with the most meaningful response to your answer.
Okay, so then the next one is, I'm not sure if this has already been covered. Is this grant available yearly?
I'm sorry. Can you repeat that question, Tonya? I didn't hear you.
Yes, I can. This person is not sure if you already covered this, April, but is this grant, the TOD funding, available yearly?
We have had the NOFO available for the last 7 years. And in the bipartisan infrastructure law, we are approved 68 million, which is a 38% increase in funding. So there are hopes for the program to continue on. And thus far, we have had a good record of success.
Okay, so April, this is from someone who asked a question earlier and didn't have clarity. They're asking, what do you mean by identify a mode? Apologies if I didn't hear that earlier. So
Yep, so a mode within the respects of this program can be a BRT. It could be commuter rail, heavy rail, it can also be light rail, streetcar. But if you have any further questions about what a mode is identified as, feel free to contact me and we can schedule a one-on-one consultation.
okay, so April, that's it for right now in chat. Let me switch over to Q&A box again. The NOFO defines core capacity improvement projects as substantial investments in an existing fixed guideway system that increases the capacity of the corridor not by less than 10%. It is not clear from the definition when or if, and you may have covered this, April, when or if the corridor-based BRT project satisfies this definition. Would a corridor-based BRT project qualify if it replaces an existing high-frequency local route or satisfies a 10% increase in the capacity requirement? Can you provide examples when the corridor-based BRT project does or do and do not qualify for the program? I see some corridor-based BRT projects have qualified for funding in the past. I apologize if you covered this one.
We did, and I encouraged the participant to reach out to me. The question seems as if I can provide more of a meaningful response if we were to meet, because I don't know the complexities of this situation. But I do encourage them to contact me.
We may have also covered this one. I apologize, but I just want to make sure I cover. I believe this question is asking for guidance to be provided at the project selection on pre-award authority. This is mentioned in the NOFO and is also in the presentation that there will be guidance on pre-award authority provided at the notice of project selection.
Yep, at the notice of project selection, the selected awardees would work with the regional office regarding the pre-award authority.
Okay, so April, that actually concludes your 8 questions in your Q&A box and your questions in your chat for now.
Okay, well, thank you so much, everyone. And thank you, Tonya. At this time, I'm going to hand the presentation over to Fleming Elamine to provide final thoughts.
Thank you, April. I again wanted to thank everyone for your participation today. We're real excited about this program and look forward to receiving your proposals. For those who haven't had a chance to look at the TOD pilot planning program, I would encourage you to take a look at past projects that were awarded. The project descriptions and the awarded amounts are available there. And April, I wasn't sure if a link to the recording of this would be available on the website.
Yes, that is correct. In the coming days, the recording will be available.
Great. Okay, excellent. So for those that want to check the website for the recording link or share it with others who are not available to attend today's webinar, that would be great. And again, we'll our contact information April's contact information is available on the website for further questions and comments. And with that, we'll close it out. And again, thank you for your participation.